From the makers of Spiders Will Eat Your Face comes The Animal Saga, 3 films including Spiders Will Eat Your Face, Hamsters, The History, and Goldfish Bowl, Death by Glass. All this pet history on Amazon and BigWeaselLilWeasel.club.
Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Joe.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast. And this week, we're reviewing Lady Bird.
Not my favorite first lady, honestly.
No, the movie Lady Bird.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. 100%.
Welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? Featuring 2 guys getting smiley and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And that came to us from Kaylee Scott on Facebook.
Thanks, Kaylee. If you have any further synonym suggestions, you can suggest them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what have you, any of our social media networks. But let us delay no further. Joe, do you want to introduce these 2 people sitting betwixt us?
Betwixt us, I would love to. We have Daniel Pieczkolon. Did I do it?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay. Wait, say it for me.
Pieczkolon.
Pieczkolon.
There you go.
Okay. I was close.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird symbols, and there's a swastika in the middle of it, and a number sign. It's like
I thought that was weird.
It's a phonetic disaster.
Because all week I've been like, all right, and we're having Daniel P on. And his lovely girlfriend, Kristine Murawski. Kristine.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. It's your dang Facebook name.
Chris and the teen.
And then I sorry. And I think I also butchered your last name as well.
Yeah, you just got the whole, this is...
Right. This has been a disaster, everyone.
So it can only go up from here.
Yes. No,
and that's as good as it gets.
They've experienced like Mike reading the intro twice, and I'm like, I'm just not feeling it this right. But no, say your last name for me.
Murawski.
What did I say?
Weird one.
Murawski?
Murawski. I usually get Murawski.
It's really, I mean,
that's what I usually get.
There's no excuse for yours, really. I should have nailed that one.
I just said it and spelled it for you about 3 minutes before doing this, too.
No, yes. There's no excuse. Besides, like, the 5 beers I've had already.
Maybe an excuse.
Already this night, where I'm like, Kristen! For the rest of the night, I'm just going to be like, Kristen, what did you think? Kristen!
Correct you with like Sarah. It's Melanie. Please call me Amethyst.
That's not even a name.
That is a name. People name.
It's a name now.
That's a name.
Mm-hmm. But, no, I just...
What?
Nothing. I saw you teeing something up, and I was like, no. Stop. But Daniel, I know you're a writer and a poet. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? I mean, I've heard quite a bit about it because we're just talking about you are also in the group of the 3 of us, me, you, and Dagler, who, when Joe doesn't have a guest, he calls upon one of us.
We're like the Alec Baldwin, John Goodman, you know what I mean? Like whoever else hosts SNL a lot to complete that analogy. Yeah.
Are they ever really doing anything that needs to be promoted?
No, they're just
they're just there.
Just available all the time.
Hanging out in the hallways of 30 Rock. Yeah.
But do tell us about or just at least where we can find your...
I had a poem come out last month at Kettle Blue Review, which you can find online, which is a cool little publication I like.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
And do you have like a Twitter kind of?
I have no social media presence.
Good. It's poison.
Follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Twitter just frightens me. It's too hard, and I'm like too confident in my own shitty jokes that like I wouldn't censor them and then just get mad.
Well, they made it easier now because it's 280 characters now.
We used to, when I post these episodes under our handle for the podcast, I used to write out this thing on Facebook and then kind of take it over to Twitter and be like, all right, I gotta get creative to like smush this into, how many characters was it? 140 before?
Yeah.
But now it's just boring. I just copy and paste the same thing over to Twitter, and I'm like, there you go, guys. Like, it's not, I don't know.
Just less organized Facebook now.
Yeah, it is. I really feel like I don't know. Why did they do that?
I think we'll get over it.
Presidential decree.
President Trump?
Yeah.
So he has 280 degrees to be an asshole now.
Wait, this isn't a pro-Trump podcast? We're gonna.
What are we talking about?
We're gonna.
We just pull out "Make America Great Again."
Oh, I'm sorry. It's very pro-Trump. MAGA. Or whatever they say. What's the acronym? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Right, Kristen? Back me up on here, Kristen. Back me up, Kristen.
I have a MAGA shirt on under. Should I just?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no.
Should I change now?
Take that off. Yeah.
Okay.
Take that off.
Yeah.
Get right to the meat of it.
Let's dive in here.
Hey, let's drink some liquor, guys.
Oh yeah,
Or a malt beverage. So, Joe, you want to tell us what you are forcing us to do?
Yes. And I have a 12-pack. There's plenty.
There's more of where
There's
this came
plenty of
from.
these Seagrams. I know you want to escape these Seagrams escapes, but I have 9 more.
You guys are knocking it, and you're not even. Neither of yours are.
No,
open.
I know.
I'm telling you, this is very refreshing drink. I'm
Christine
into
just
this.
said it tasted like vitamin water, so I'm excited.
Well, maybe my flavor. You guys have different flavors. I got the blueberry acai lemonade.
But I was at the liquor store and I said,
That is pretty good.
I think this
It just tastes like a strawberry daiquiri.
this looks like a high
Not
school girls
frozen.
drink, and it's 3.2 alcohol. Of course it tastes great. It's like nothing.
Like malt.
What are we escaping from?
Liquor.
Our lives.
We're on a
Sober movie reviews.
So, Jesus Christ. I will
That's
go
good
get a
for it.
paper towel.
I think that
real quick.
helps
This isn't even
the
my
computer
laptop.
work.
Mm-hmm. You guys talk about your flavors.
Yes, we have 3 flavors. Joe has, and his computer now has, coconut lime.
Savory.
I have strawberry
Coconut
Savory's
lime
computer has
Oh.
strawberry daiquiri, and you have what? Blueberry
Blueberry
acai.
acai lemonade.
Is it acai? I always say acai, but I'm probably wrong.
I don't know.
I've never
I'm
even
not
had.
saying it with confidence. That's what I'm going.
I don't
with.
even know what it is.
If we can't get this, we're gonna butcher the lead
Berry?
actress's name for the next hour and a half.
Yeah, my mom called me to tell me that some other woman was drinking a smoothie, and my mom was like, "Oh, is that the acai berry smoothie?" And the woman was like, "No, it's acai."
Oh, so I was
But
right.
no, it's
Well, no,
definitely
I think she's wrong. I think it is acai.
think
She
it
was
is
confidently
acai.
wrong.
She was confidently wrong.
Yeah.
Which is the way to be if you're going to be wrong.
Confident.
Just double down on it.
Correcting
Yeah.
people is the best kind of way to correct people.
I'm having a flashback of Savory, my girlfriend, lovely girlfriend, who's letting me borrow her laptop because mine
For the last time.
Are treating
being an
well.
asshole. Never again. But I'm constantly doing bits with her, and I'm just doing bits at her. Really, is what I do. And sometimes I'll get fake mad, and I'll kind of be like, "Yeah, well, I don't care about your laptop," and go like this or whatever. But I actually poured beer all over her laptop. And yeah, it was a big problem. We had to turn it upside down, and I'm sure rice was applied.
Rice.
Yeah. And it's fine, and I'm sure it'll be fine after this too. So I'm drinking coconut lime Seagram's Escape.
What's left of it?
How's that one?
That's pretty darn tasty too. And again,
Yeah.
not a huge alcohol content, but who needs it?
But huge flavor content.
This is literally something high school girls should drink. You want a tiny buzz? You want to be...
How many fingers does not endorse underage drinking, male or female?
That one that came out wrong. I'm sorry.
I'm 16, by the way. If that's why I'm so excited to do this podcast, because they told me I was going to
Just got our
get here.
license today.
Kristen, the
it's
16-year-old
I
Trump
drove
supporter.
here.
my new-
16-year-old Trump supporter.
I swear our intentions were pretty pure. We just wanted a high school girls
If you are going to drink.
Real opinion unrelated
tastes pretty
to
good.
on Lady Bird. And it turns out we've just been giving an underage girl alcohol. Underage by Quite
Many
a few
years.
years.
She's not close to 21.
It's
boy.
not bad though. None of these are bad.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
You
I
did,
like
you did pretty
this.
good with these.
I didn't, but they're good.
I mean, I don't think I could drink this all night. Like a few of these. This isn't something like, let me binge drink these Seagrams.
Right. I think I would throw up from the sugar
Yeah.
that was inside of these. All right, but
Yeah, we're gonna regret these later.
oh, definitely. But yeah, but we won't regret the alcohol content though.
No.
Because there is not
None.
that much. All right, so let me read the IMDb description, and then you can give us some mic notes,
Sounds good.
and then we'll get into a little group discussion. How's that sound, everybody?
Cool.
Sounds great.
Okay, IMDb says, in the early 2000s, an artistically inclined 17-year-old comes of age in Sacramento, California. Wow, that's broad.
I didn't really get the artistic part.
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you read
I mean,
that.
she's
The
unique.
theater?
She's like a character, but I guess she's a theater geek a little bit.
Well,
She just won musical in the hall and then quit.
Yeah, and that's her,
and then
that's her
quit.
first time doing it. Yeah.
she
From it,
didn't.
so-
She didn't know about the theater program that her high school has.
Yeah, she
for-
didn't know about it. She had no
The only,
interest in
like,
it previously.
Artistic thing she did was like copying her face onto the, what was it, a duck or a goose or something, or the animal pictures in like the
A
very
bird? Lady bird.
yeah, I guess some kind of bird.
Yeah. They don't even really follow up on that thing. Now that I
Yeah.
think about it,
Her
She was
running for
she's
the,
running for president or student
then-
body president.
Oh, yeah, she says she
I
does it
actually
like every
forgot
year, but never
that
wins.
wins.
even happened in
Yeah.
the
That was just
beginning. Like she didn't
kind
give
of
a
a-
speech or anything.
Yeah.
Put up posters throughout the. Why did they even have that in there?
I don't know.
I think it was supposed to be some sort of character thing, like she's quirky, she does this like every year just to do it. But anyway, let me run through these notes real quick and then we can dive further into discussion. Lady Bird was written and directed by actress Greta Gerwig. This is her directorial debut. She's written before. She co-wrote for Hannah Takes the Stairs, Nights and Weekends, Northern Comfort, Frances Ha, and Mistress America. And she starred in all of the above, as well as Baghead, Greenberg, No Strings Attached, which is is it the Justin Timberlake or the Ashton Kutcher? Remember there was like two movies that came out that same year
I think
that
it's
were the
Oh,
same
no, Ashton Kutcher was.
Friends with Benefits?
Yeah.
Oh, then it's not the Cooch.
So then it was the Justin Timberlake,
Probably.
Mila Kunis one then.
Yeah.
And then she was also in Jackie, which we reviewed last year, and 20th Century Woman, which I saw last year, which was okay.
Yeah.
It's not bad. And then she's in the upcoming Wes Anderson Isle of Dogs, just to name a few. And then just kind of interesting, she's dating Noah Baumbach since 2011.
Oh, I thought they were married.
Well, maybe they're married. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
I'm only going by
I don't think they've
Wikipedia.
gotten married.
No.
yet.
They
They're
haven't?
just-
Okay.
She ended his first marriage, though.
Right, yeah.
He ended his own marriage.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mean to place blame.
He traded in for the new model. Who was the ex-wife?
Jennifer Jason
Yes,
Leigh.
Yeah.
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
And, like,
Yeah.
That's why she's always in angry roles now.
I love Jennifer Jason Leigh. I think she's great.
she's-
Let's just
yeah.
talk about her for a while.
She is. Yeah.
She was in Good Time this year.
She was.
Yeah, she was good
And I
in
really
that.
like her role in that. Yeah. She was also in Anomalisa. You want to
She
expand
was.
on that?
Yeah. A little disappointed in your episode on that. It's
she
an incredibly
just-
great movie.
Oh.
I was
So
talking
you know
to
that you
them.
were wrong.
Yeah, when we met.
I
Yeah.
just-
Know that
That's
if
why
I reviewed it
I'm
today,
done
I would
with
give
the
it a higher
podcast.
score than I gave it back then.
I just came here to say that. I'm gonna go now.
But not much higher.
I didn't even see Lady Bird.
I was talking to.
Writing
This
a
is just
screed
her-
to defend
yeah,
Charlie Kaufman.
Listen, I didn't see Lady Bird. What I'm really here to talk about
Talk you
is
through the Kaufman
Let's just
Charlie
get into this
Kaufman
now.
intervention.
I'm 16. I love Donald Trump, and I hate you for not liking anomalies.
Mr. and Mrs. King, please come out here. You got my parents here?
I cannot imagine them liking Anomalisa either.
Yeah, that's true.
So what did you like so much about Anomalisa? Let's open that.
What do you mean? What
Really
do
put
you
me
like
on the
so
spot
much
here.
about it that makes it sound?
I just
It's like conceit in the animation. There's like so many things that are like unique to that movie that are like I just hadn't seen in other movies.
Yes,
Like
it was something new that was done well. Not something new to throw in there and be like, look,
a
this new thing I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Did it well.
The stop motion sex scene is like legit
Yeah.
sexy. Like it's eerily sexy.
It is.
Yeah,
so
no,
it is.
I was-
you
I
come
was
out
into
feeling
that.
kind of
Yeah.
weird that you were into that sex scene.
but I I think we all talked, or the last time we all talked in person was at Joe's 100th episode of the O Word podcast. And they're like, "Oh, you're from How Many Fingers? We have to talk about the Anomalisa episode." And I was like, "Hey, man, that's not me. It's the other guy."
So here we are.
Yes. And at gunpoint,
Well, I hope you guys like Lady Bird. Oh boy. I don't have too much else here. This I found. I was listening to the director's cut, which I keep bringing up that podcast. It's really great. You guys should subscribe to it. It's basically just directors interviewing other directors at premieres of their movies. I'm trying to remember who was interviewing Greta Gerwig, but they were talking about stuff on set, and she was saying that to kind of get like everyone involved in the cast and crew together, so they weren't just kind of like day players and strangers every day. She would make everyone wear name tags, and they would have like a daily question, like what's your favorite song, or what's your favorite food, or favorite movie, or whatever. So you would have your name tag and then the answer to like the daily question. It was just kind of like a conversation starter and to kind of like connect everyone, I guess. And she said that worked really well. And that was really all I could find about the production of this movie. It seems like a pretty basic
I think it's
movie
funny
to produce.
she said that worked well. I wonder what like the third boom mic operator thought of it. Like as he was like setting up and being like, "Oh, my fucking favorite pizza topping is I got to work."
I don't have time to think about this shit.
Yeah.
And the cast includes Saoirse Ronan. I think I got that right. Laurie Metcalf, Lucas Hedges, Timothy Chalamet, take your pick. Tracy Letts, Jordan Rodriguez, and Stephen Henderson. And that's all I got. We can dive right into a discussion of Lady Bird.
Isn't Lucas Hedges the boyfriend, the first boyfriend?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And he was in
Manchester by the Sea.
last year's Manchester
Yeah,
by the Sea.
He was the only name I knew in it, and then you just listed all those names. I was like, I don't know.
And our
I know
upcoming
Lauren
episode, 3 Billboards, he was also...
Oh, he's
he
in
plays
that too?
the son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Is he
in
in
that.
Moonrise Kingdom as like one of the little Boy Scouts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the little, like mean ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He looks
asshole one.
like
He's so
kind
much
of a
younger
mean
in that movie.
kind
Now that
of,
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. He's,
He got nominated last year, I think, right, for Manchester for
I
supporting.
think so. I can't...
I can never remember
Can't be
because
positive, yeah.
there's so long where I'm like predicting what's going to get nominated. I
And
can
then
never
what actually
remember
does.
like what
Yeah.
was expected and what actually did get nominated. I think he was though.
Yeah, I think so too. I guess I'll start off the discussion of this film where I thought my favorite and the strongest scene of this movie was, I guess, technically the second scene. They are in a hotel room in the first scene, which I was kind of like, okay. And then when they're in the car, it's been used a lot in like the trailers for Lady Bird, and I think it opens on them finishing to like a book on tape version of John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath. And and they're on the road like visiting colleges or whatever, and what's it called? Again, there's so many things that happen, and I'll probably keep revisiting this or whatever. But Lady Bird, they're both pretty emotionally like overcome, and I really love that. It's a really great detail. But then like Lady Bird goes to turn on the radio after the book on tape, and her mom is like, "Can we just like sit with this for a minute?" And I really love that. But it's also contradictory to the film because like there are so many scenes in this film that I would love like if the editing was just like a little like, let me sit with this emotion instead of like, hey, everyone's crying, no, now she's having a fun time at a party. Like kind of like it's very like it's just kind of like there is this kind of like betrayal in this film where there's somebody kissing somebody else, and within 10 seconds it goes that in the car listening to Dave Matthews Band to now she's getting off, now she's elated like getting her cast off, and I was just like, fuck man, like I have no time to respond to any of these emotions kind of. And I feel like maybe that's just a preference of mine, and maybe that line is kind of being like, hey man, the editing, like the way that we cut this film is just going at the speed of like the way that Lady Bird or the way that anybody kind of like endures high school kind of, you know?
In that director's cut podcast, she did say that like the original script was like 350 pages or something like that. And then it was just, she really just wrote as many like scenes as possible. And then she kind of whittled it down from there and kind of just rearranged them as it made sense to the story. And she was just kind of like, here's a random scene here, here's a random scene here, and let me just arrange them in a way that makes sense. So that might have something to do with that editing style of like, well, we got to kind of just jump on to the next one because there used to be 350 of these, and now there's 160, 180, however long it ended up being.
Yeah.
You brought up the Steinbeck book that they're listening to in the beginning, and I wasn't gonna like nerd out on it, but I'm an English teacher, and that was such like a clever use of like intertextuality. The end of Steinbeck, like you just get like a little bit of it, but that passage, the last passage, is like I forget the character's name, but it's like not one of the Jode family, but it's one of the characters. She had just given birth to a stillborn baby. They like come to like this shack, and there's these two men in it who are like dying, and the last paragraph that like you get to hear a little bit of in the movie is her like breastfeeding one of these dying men, which is such like a way to introduce like a movie about like women's capacity to nurture or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's such a subtle little thing that like you shouldn't pick up on, but it was like, oh, I read that book before. Like
there's a lot of that in the script.
Yeah.
This is like one of my favorite screenplays of the year so far, I think. There's just Oh, did you have something there?
Oh, I should. When we saw it,
that's
she said the
exactly
same thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of just nuance and like themes that are like followed up on in this, and just the way the characters are written is so well put in this movie. Just like everyone feels fleshed out and individual, and like they have a life outside of what we're actually allowed to see. Like I almost like more some of the stuff that they don't explain or show us in this movie. Like I like that we have like the Stephen Henderson character, the priest, like crying to Lady Bird's mom, and we don't really find out what he's really depressed about. We don't really find out why her dad's depressed. We don't find out why.
Well, I think we do get his son overdosed, and then he became a priest.
But you get it from
after that,
just, like more.
I guess I guess he does. It doesn't come from the horse's mouth or whatever.
We debated that after when we came out of it. Actually, like whether that was like actually why he was depressed or whether it was gossip.
I like that you just hear the gossip from the other girls in high school, just as you would have naturally in high school, and you don't really know why he is or what's going on. I liked that about it.
And then there's the one scene with like Julie when she comes, Lady Bird comes after the prom or without going to the prom, and Julie's just like crying there, and like you can maybe infer that maybe she's crying because she's not at prom and about Lady Bird, but she never says it, and we don't actually know it. And I like a lot of the stuff like that where they don't beat you over the head with anything, and it's to great effect because it allows us to make our own opinions about stuff, and it also just really like reinforces that like small town feel of like everyone's got their own life going on, and everyone knows a little bit about someone else's life in the town, but not really the full story.
Yeah.
Nothing felt too at you.
And no.
They didn't
definitely
overdo anything, over-explain anything. I felt like it just had that perfect balance of where it didn't leave you too much like, I just want to know what happened. Could you have just given me some type of context clue here? And nothing felt too much in my face. Or I was like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Even like the way that she evokes the time, like it's 2002, 2003, but it's not like in your face. You know what I mean? I feel like sometimes when movies are set like in a specific time period, even a recent one, it's like bring up the cheesiest pop culture references.
Make sure you fucking page me.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it is, like getting back to the John Steinbeck, like book on tape kind of. Again, this is definitely my favorite scene because she's like, man, I just wish I could live through something. And, and it's ironic because even though she's not like leaving her home because of like the Dust Bowl and like the Great Depression or whatever, it's less than a year. It's very post 9/11, and on every TV in the background of a lot of scenes is the Iraq War or the war in Afghanistan. Are those actually like we didn't have very creative names for either of those information. But it
was Desert Siege, maybe, because Desert Storm was the first time we were in. I guess we were in Kuwait back then, and then it was Desert Siege. I think was the second time.
Right. Yeah. So that's always on the TV, and she is living through something. But again, it also speaks volumes, I think, about like how fleeting like a lot of shit is in high school, where it's always like something is happening. Like she's living through a lot of stuff. I don't know. I like that. And I like that she just, she gets into like an argument with her mom in the car, and she just bails out of the side of the car and breaks her arm, because like that's such like a high schooler instinct. Like I remember just being in like an argument with like a high school girlfriend even, and I was like, I wish we'd fucking crash this car right now. And that's so reckless and crazy, but like that's where my high school mind was at. And I mean,
you're indestructible at that. You're not thinking about the danger of flinging yourself out of that
like
car.
I wish we would just fucking someone would smash into our car so we could stop talking about this. Like it's just kind of like now it's like, no, why? Like think about your insurance. Like it's very
I do really like their like hot and cold relationship where they're angry and then they'll immediately jump back into like just being buddy mom and daughter. Like there's the one scene, it's really cool in the trailer too, when they're in like they're shopping for prom dresses and stuff.
The thrift store,
yeah. And like she's like, I can't stand you, you're whatever, and then immediately it's like, oh, that one's really pretty, and it just like jumps right back into it.
I think it's one of the first films that I've seen that accurately portrays how women fight. I was listening to I think Greta Gerwig was on like Fresh Air or something. P.S. Side note, listen to that interview if you want to hear like a really awkward like interaction between like Terry Gross and Greta Gerwig, because it's kind of a Terry gross and it's just she just like kind of almost forces Greta Gerwig to talk about like everything that's happening in Hollywood right now with women and everything, and Greta Gerwig doesn't want to talk about it, and Terry Gross is like, well, you were just in like a Woody Allen movie, like what do you think about all this kind of, and Greta Gerwig's like, I don't really want to talk about this kind of, and she's like, like, well, just like, tell me, or just like Dustin Hoffman was just in like Noah Baumbach's film. Like, how are you guys dealing with that? And then Greta Gerwig was finally like, you really like Louis C.K. Well, what do you think about that? Like, tell me, like, what do you think about that? And like Terry kind of like backtracks, and I was like, that was Terry Gross. Like
that's a good way to handle it.
Yeah, and but what was I originally
You're going to
say?
tell us how girls fight, and I'm very interested. I would love to know how. Please tell me.
Definitely. So she was going to, I know girls, because I am one. I'm a white man. Let me tell you about girls.
I have no
let me tell you about
prior
women.
experience of that.
But no, she was just talking about taking this to investors or whatever, and people who had kind of either daughters or sisters were like, okay, yeah, I understand this completely. And people who kind of didn't really have that interaction at all, they were just kind of like, huh, this is weird. Like, and just kind of weren't as enthusiastic about the project. So yeah.
Really? That seems, I don't know.
I don't know.
It seems strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, I personally couldn't identify with how some conflicts played out in this film, and I think that part of me can be like, oh, but I mean, I've seen my mom and sister, and I have petty shit with my mom. I mean, this is a very like mom film. I mean, even like we talked about, have you guys seen The Big Sick this year?
We have, yeah.
I got into like a thing with Mike where I was just kind of like, like Kumail is just as shitty like as his parents kind of, and Mike was like, no, not really, but this is definitely something where the shit is 50-50. Like it's like the mom's shitty and Lady Bird's shitty, and I think that's like it's a really good balance of both of those.
When I left the theater, I was just so weirded out at how much it reminded me of me and my mom's relationship. I had never in my life watched a movie and just felt it so hard. Like all of those scenes, especially what you were mentioning with you could go with such an argument and then the next second they're saying something, you're joining in something together. Right. Oh, but also look at this like cool thing I found. Oh yeah, that's great. And then you just like forgot what you thought about, but you'll be at each other's necks.
Yeah.
And the next second you're talking like that didn't happen 2 seconds ago.
See, I think that's the beauty of the screenplay is that me being a white man, I obviously don't know the relationship between a daughter and a mother, but I feel like I do now after this movie, you know. And it's not just understanding that these two specific characters, like I think they just get across stuff that's universal but also specific at the same time in this movie.
We were talking before too that like we were trying to think of other films that had like female high school protagonists that were like this well developed, and like we couldn't come up with one.
I couldn't come up with anything that represented, especially a mother-daughter relationship or even a teenage girl in this way.
Right.
Even
I don't know, like what is there to offer that's really coming of age of specifically a teenage girl? And I was just thinking of things like that were not great representations, like Ghost World. She sleeps with an old creepy dude, or Jawbreaker. They kill one of their friends.
Yeah, there are high school girl movies, but they aren't really true to life or
like
like
Clueless. Like, am I supposed to base
Easy A?
You
or,
know, like her pregnancy is somehow easy and everything's quirky still.
and she like
young and pregnant.
she does that thing. I know who wrote Juno. She won the Oscar too. The woman who wrote
Diablo
Juno.
Cody.
Yeah. But the Juno character kind of talks like a Sorkin character, a Kevin Smith character, a Gilmore Girls character, where it's like everyone's just like she's like too pithy for her own good.
Right.
Like where this Lady Bird felt like a real person that you knew in high school.
Like she acted like she knew everything, and then you find out 2 seconds later she had no idea what she was talking about, and that's such a
that
like,
Doors
high school,
that Doors example on that. Yeah, that's really funny.
Lady Bird does have some like one-line zingers though, which I don't know.
Yeah, but it's good that balances itself out because they give her flaws too. Like if we're going to compare it to like Juno, like they don't really give Juno any flaws. She's just incredibly witty and clever all the time, and always has a response to everything, and doesn't even really get like emotionally frazzled in the movie. Like she just kind of handles everything like a pro. Whereas in this, like there's like little things that are flawed with Lady Bird. Like I really like the scene where like Lady Bird's signing up for the cast list. She puts Lady Bird in quotes, and then Julie puts Julie in quotes, and she's like, it's not the same. Like she's very self-centered, and she can't really see stuff that's going on outside of herself. That's why like it takes her so long to realize the stuff that's going on with her dad, and like how she's actually affecting her dad's mental stability with the way she treats him, and just very self-centered and not really self-aware.
I'm glad you brought up the dad. That's like, I think his performance is definitely like one of my favorite performances in this film. The writing of his character, and this is one of my few problems with this film. It felt a little too on the nose. Like I feel like dads and money and all this stuff, like some of the arguments didn't feel realistic, where it was just kind of like, you know, and your dad feels like embarrassed that he has to drop you off at here, or your dad, you know, is like depressed about this and money, and where he's just kind of like admitting defeat, where he's like, you didn't have to tell her that. Like, I don't think that's how dads really act. I think like maybe it's just like my dad or something, where he'd be like, no, that's not true. Like kind of like just complete denial, complete like just very like kind of like Tony Soprano has to be like the rock of the family. Like even if he is the pushover and there's some sort of like matriarchal family in place, like the dad will like lie to, who would want to admit to their daughter that like, I was kind of embarrassed by that. No, that's something that you like tell your wife in confidence.
Well, he does kind of, I mean, because when he's protesting that, he's kind of like, he's definitely embarrassed to even have to sort of admit to it, where he's like,
oh, definitely,
you didn't have to like bring that up. Like I thought that was a good performance there and good writing there.
It didn't seem,
I definitely bought into
it. Felt a little spelled out. It felt a little too on the nose for me. It felt like a little like, this is how you should feel about the dad, instead of the dad being like, no, that's not me. Like just kind of like denial, like because that's.
But I thought that was good because he doesn't, like, it's not like he's walking around being like morose and sad. So it was kind of giving us like, that's when we're kind of finally realizing like, oh, because we had been seeing it really through Lady Bird's eyes, where he's happy around her, you know, he's joking around with her. He's not really letting in how he's feeling inside. She doesn't even realize that he's been taking, you know, antidepressants his entire life.
Right.
And then we finally get to see like, oh yeah, like he is affected by this. I really like the financial undertones, or I guess not even undertones, just the financial theme of this movie.
That was the first thing I said when we walked out of the theater.
Yeah, they really nailed class.
Like, and I feel like it's really hard to make a movie, to have class be a theme in a movie, but not be a movie about class. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like as soon as you start to touch issues of class, it kind of just becomes like a class or a materialist movie or something like that.
Right.
But this was just like kind of like you said, it's like an underturn that's like throughout it. Like their favorite thing to do is to go look at nice houses.
Yeah, that was a really nice detail.
And that's the only time you really see the mom like live in a sort of fantasy world where she's always the realist, like all throughout this film, and just kind of like dragging. Like that's like when the advisor or whatever laughs at Lady Bird about like being like, maybe I want to go to like Yale or if like a place like Yale, and she like laughs at her and she's like, I'm sorry, my job is to be
Realistic.
realistic or honest or whatever. She's like, I feel like that's everybody's job, kind of, and I feel like that's definitely the mother. So that this scene was like, I don't know, it was definitely a break in that mother character. Yeah,
I thought that was one of the scene leading up to them going to go see the houses was actually, I thought, a really powerful scene, because Lady Bird comes out, she's crying, she gets in the car, and with how her mom is acting throughout, like, and is throughout the whole movie, she could have antagonized her and asked her what's wrong and dig at her there, and she just recognized that her daughter was upset, and it just like felt like a small change. Like her mom saw that and just cheered her up, didn't ask her what was wrong, didn't nag at her, didn't anything, just saw this moment and was like, I need to be here for my daughter right now. And it was just, I don't know, one part of the movie where I felt the mom starting to recognize and change a little bit.
oh definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and is it Laura or Laurie Metcalf, her name?
Laurie, I think. Laurie Metcalf.
She's great. She's my favorite performance of the movie. And that scene, there's a bunch of examples, but that scene in particular, her like reaction to Lady Bird crying in the car is like such a great
you see she's
piece
pained
of acting.
by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also, I mean, to go back to the class thing, something I reference like all the time is I feel like growing up and seeing like something like Malcolm in the Middle, like is really easy. It's like it really portrayed like class and poverty and family financial struggle like really well. But however, I feel like the mom can sometimes be bold, like, yeah, we're like poor, so what, kind of like if she has to stand up for somebody, where this is a more like they nail the embarrassment of being like less affluent. In this movie, like the whole like things that cut me like really deep were just like the whole like, you know, like you need to present yourself like better in school because like some of your classmates, you know, fathers might like be in an interview and hire your father or something. Like you need to fucking pull yourself up.
Yeah.
Like it just like putting the weight of poverty on like your child's shoulders, and it's like you can't fucking do that because like it's affecting this whole family and the income and everything, and just like they didn't really like, I feel like they didn't do too much on it. Like I feel like they could have gone a little harder on kind of when she's dating like the Lucas Hedges character, like dating somebody sort of like outside of like your tax bracket basically. Like it's just like I wish the mom was like, well, you have to be like this like when you're over there, instead of, or just like, you know, or you're not good enough for this person because his family
They did kind of do that
more.
because then when she's shopping for something for Thanksgiving, they're talking, I forget what she says.
That's the only
she says
scene,
something
though, yeah.
like, oh, like that's something that such and such would wear.
Right.
They
but
do touch on it a little, yeah.
There weren't as many cutting lines about that where she felt uncomfortable kind of.
There was the one
dating.
scene that I really liked when like she had made the comment to Lucas Hedges' character about like, oh, we live on like the other side of the tracks.
yeah.
And then when he
yeah.
relays that to them and like the look on her face of like, ooh,
Mom's
like that
face,
stings a little
yeah.
bit.
That's such a great example too of her writing like high school dialogue, right? Like he's
He
trying
doesn't-
to
he
be
doesn't-
charming and
yep.
he just doesn't understand like class or like tone or like how to communicate.
Right.
Yeah, and it's perfect. It's yeah.
Because he spills the beans like multiple times to her mom. In this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
He's
There was
And then-
the one line about class too, the scene about class that I really like. I mean all of them, but
right.
one, well, she is lying to the rich girl that like she
yeah.
lives in the nice house and then shows up, and then there's that scene in the kitchen afterwards where she's like explaining it, and the rich girl just says like, I don't understand why you would do that, and that like great, just like not like why would you do
Yeah.
that? I don't understand because money's not a problem for me. It's like
Yeah,
such a-
she's never had that problem. It doesn't even register for her.
yeah.
There's nothing better than like the truest like kind of character acting in this film. It was by the Timothy, what's his name?
Chalamet.
Yeah, Chalamet.
Calumet. No idea.
He just like, I love that character. I forget what is he reading? He's like halfway through it too, and he's got like a cigarette, and he's always like, and like I love how he's like sitting on the, like he's talking about like, I really want to wean off money and like really start just bartering. And he's
Yeah.
like, he's sitting on like the trunk of like a BMW.
Yeah.
It's just like so like it's mind boggling. It's just like
The set design is really good in this movie, I feel like, just to really evoke the differences in the classes, because like you have like Lady Bird's house where it's like that like awful ugly like wood paneling and everything's small and cramped, and then you in like his bedroom like looks bigger than Lady Bird's house, and he's got that huge like king size bed that he's like sleeping in as a fucking like high school student. Like it just, that's all you really need to get across, like, oh, he comes for money.
What did you guys think of the whole, they hook up at the one house and she's like, I don't want to have sex, I'm still a virgin. He says, me too, me too. And then they do have sex and he's like, whatever, I've had sex with other people. Is that a lie, or is the first thing a lie?
I didn't remember actually hearing him say that he was.
He says, me too, me too, me too.
He did.
He
He
says,
said
don't,
multiple
he's like,
times.
he says,
Okay.
don't worry, I don't have sex either. I haven't had sex. Like, like me too.
Oh, okay. That changes
so-
my opinion on that scene.
Right. So I kind of think he's lying about having sex with other girls. I mean, it's kind of,
Oh, interesting.
I mean, personally, because I did this, like you feel embarrassed, like, oh, I've had sex before, kind of, like you lie about that, and it's stupid and it's immature, and I mean, like it's kind of obvious because like he comes in like a second, like it's just. I don't know. I don't think he's had sex with other people.
But he
I
had the
think he's-
condom like ready to go in the side drawer, and she like makes note like, oh, you put that on like really adeptly or however she says it.
right. Yeah.
So I think he has had it before. I think the first one is the lie, because I think it's
don't
supposed to
know,
be
but
telling
that's-
about his character
But
that
that's him being drunk and like vulnerable is when he's saying that. The way he's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, like I haven't either. Like it was just very, or is that
It could be drunk and manipulative.
right?
Like,
That could
yeah.
be drunk and kind of, I'll do anything to have sex with you, kind of, or I'll do like fuck, like I'll do whatever tonight,
He
Yeah.
dropped a name too, saying, "Well, I actually."
He listed like 5 names
So,
in their high school.
I don't know.
But he doesn't seem like I don't know. That's why I asked, because I am kind of like, it could go either way in my mind.
I think it's just another good example of what we talked about earlier of her not like spoon feeding us anything.
Yeah.
Like,
Right, definitely, yeah.
requires viewer participation to make sense of it.
See, I hadn't heard him say me too, so I thought in that scene that was her kind of like making an assumption and then being hurt by the assumption she made. Because he's very like blasé about it, where he's like, oh yeah, I've had sex like 6 or 7 times before, like at least, like,
No,
and then like lists all the girls for her.
He shows like
Like a
pretty,
gentleman.
Yes.
He shows like a pretty like deep
Honesty.
vulnerability where he's just kind of like, me neither. I haven't had sex either. He's like, I don't want to, like kind of like thing. Which I mean, something there's a lie. Like he obviously would probably have sex or something, but I don't know. Yeah, it was very interesting.
I like that idea of like Lady Bird making assumptions and then being hurt by them though, because
Yeah,
like
definitely.
her
Yeah.
wanting to be with him is one, and then even her, I like in that opening scene when she's talking about wanting to go to school on the East Coast, she's like, I want to go to school in New York or Connecticut or New Hampshire, wherever there's culture, right? She has this like
Right.
vague
She wants to go
idea
somewhere with
about like
culture.
what it is, but not really specific. And then you never find out what school she goes to, and then you get that great scene where at the end where she's there on the East Coast somewhere in New York, and like she's a mess, and like it's not what she thought it was gonna be, and yeah.
I really like the way that her character is kind of like a social chameleon a little bit. Like she changes around each person she's with. Like she's definitely truly herself with like Julie, but then like when she's hanging out with Kyle, she's like trying to say the like deep, like kind of like dark stuff. There's the one line where she says something. It was really funny in the theater when he's like sitting on the car at whatever the Deuce is, the parking lot that they go
parking lot or
to.
whatever, yeah.
She tries to say something really like dark or whatever, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my dad actually has cancer."
Yeah, we're all gonna die soon. He's like, well, like sooner than later from my dad.
And then like definitely when she's around like Jenna, she gets a little bit more like mean girly, like popular girl clique.
Social chameleon. I liked that.
And then when she's at the college at the end, which is one of my favorite scenes, when she's lying about the town, like when he's like, "Oh, where are you from?" and she's like,
yeah.
"Sacramento," and he's like, "I'm sorry, what?" And she's like, "San Francisco," and changes her answer real quick. Like,
Right.
I really like the fact that she she's not really sure of herself yet, and she's kind of just jumping around to whatever fits her character. Like those little flaws make it almost easier to root for a character, I feel like, you know.
But also I feel like that's like that was the introduction of like the next stage of her life too, is like going to college and just kind of, you know, he says like, where are you from? You know, Sacramento, what? San Francisco, or whatever she says. And then he says, what's your name? And she's, without hesitation now, says Kristine. You know, she's like, yeah.
That was nice too, because it was like two almost contrasting ideas in there, because it's her being ashamed of her hometown, but now also being proud of like her mother given name, and kind of moving forward with that, getting rid of Lady Bird.
Right.
Because you could kind of end the movie like on that scene, and the assumption would be that like, you know, she was just putting her hometown behind her and she was ashamed of it, and she's just starting her new period of her life. But because of the scene that happens after that with the alcohol poisoning and getting taken to the hospital, and then kind of trying to return to a place of comfort with her mother and giving her a call and going to like the church and all that, it's kind of like she went to this new place, had these experiences that she's always wanted to have, and then was kind of like, oh fuck, like I had it good back there, like I miss my mom, like that was where it was good, and had this newfound appreciation for Sacramento itself, because they come back to Sacramento in the dialogue there, because she's asking her mom like, did you ever drive around Sacramento and, you know, feel this way, you know, as you're just looking at all the towns and stuff, because that's how I felt as I was driving for the first time. Like I thought that was a nice bookend to kind of,
That's one of the,
because they have a line about Sacramento in the first scene too. And do you remember what it was when they're in the hotel room?
She said, do I look like I'm somebody?
Do I look like
from
Sacramento?
Yeah.
That's one of the only scenes too that like lingers. Like you were saying, you didn't like the way that it was like edited and like quickly, a lot of quick cuts. That scene you're describing where it's like her on the phone, you get those kind of like nice slow shots of Sacramento going around the town, and yeah, I like that.
Man, because even I thought one of the strongest emotional scenes is when the mom is really being a bitch and like gives the silent treatment when she's about to leave for like the other side of the country or whatever, and you know, she does the loop, like we're all familiar with the loop around the airport to you know, go like, instead of parking and paying money, you just kind of like drive around the airport, and she's driving around, and you know, she parks into like a place where she's not supposed to, you know, stay idle there for very long. You can't park there essentially, and she runs in and misses Lady Bird as she leaves. And again, I thought that was incredibly powerful, and like I started tearing up during that part, but it was just kind of like she runs in, and then the dad's like, she'll come back, bam, like already into another scene, like already into something else. I was just kind of like, I don't even have time to fucking be emotional about this. I have to follow like where this is going now.
See, I don't know, this is also some of my favorite editing of the year, so I have to disagree.
Oh, this is
because I think they get across so much of like literally a year in the life of this character without really, the movie doesn't feel long because it just kind of keeps jumping onto new stuff, and I feel like it would have, they could have lingered on stuff, but then they would have had to drop out other stuff, and I feel like everything has a place in this movie. Like every scene is doing something either for some of the undertones they're trying to get across, or character development for some of the side characters, or whatever themes they're trying to get across. So everything has a place in this movie, and I'm glad that they're able to include everything that they did include.
Right.
I think it's so interesting too that she writes with and dates Noah Baumbach, because his films, A, both linger on things a lot.
Yes.
It's like what I like about a lot of his films.
Yeah.
And B, also would never address class. Like every one of his films is about like an upper middle class family who has like existential problems.
No
and
job,
like
and
it was
a nice
super interesting to
apartment.
see her like having this like complete unique vision, and yeah.
Like there's the one scene where she's like on the computer doing stuff. I think she's like applying for colleges and stuff, and then literally in the background we're hearing like 10, 9, 8, and then we immediately jump to like New Year. Like I think layering like that I really liked and really helped. They got a lot across, like they literally got like 2 or 3 months across in like 2 scenes there, and they're happening at the same time.
It was Thanksgiving, applying to jobs, New Year's, like all in like 10 seconds, kind of, you know.
Yeah. And then I did like when she had like the alcohol poisoning at the end, because they did a lot of like quick cuts of like, they could have lingered on that stuff, but it wasn't really the actions were
I wouldn't want
important.
that to linger. I just,
and they would literally have it. It would be like, throw this in the trash. Action. It was just like focusing on like hands doing stuff, like, and then, you know, faces, and just a lot of really quick cuts, but getting everything across in like 30 seconds.
And I appreciate quick cuts during that. It's just kind of like, you've spent the length of this movie building emotion, savor it. Savor it.
But I think they do because they have a really long shot that's on Laurie Metcalf's face while she's driving. We see her the entirety of going around the loop.
Though that's still an action.
But we're seeing the transition of her.
We don't get to see the result though. She might pull up there and have a tearful goodbye with Lady Bird, but instead pulls up, gets out of the car, not there. Next scene, happy scene. It's just kind of
I think it lingered as long as it needed to.
I think the emotion was in that drive of her looping around and suddenly
because that's the whole point. Is her? It's the transition.
I don't think that was the important part that you were trying to.
Well, no, I mean she's definitely coming to a realization, but I think maybe it was obvious that Lady Bird wasn't going to be there when she got back around. Maybe that wasn't obvious for me.
But I thought hoping that she wasn't. I was afraid that she was going to be there. We're going to get some literal saccharine running through the airport.
But it was a toss up for me, and I didn't know how to feel emotionally yet. Was this the last scene? Was I going to emotionally rejoice and have tears of happiness, or was I going to be like, "Fuck, man, like that sucks"? And I didn't really get time to process any of that, and that was like my whole thing. It's wonderful that the mother character makes an emotional leap, sort of, but like I didn't get to fully process what she was going through in that time. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's all. Yeah.
In that director's cut I was approaching the movie having listened to the podcast beforehand, and Greta Gerwig was talking about how she sort of saw the movie as these two characters who are very similar, and in like another universe would probably get along really well all the time, but they kind of just keep missing each other, and that's why I think I really like that scene. That's literally her missing her, and then when Lady Bird calls, I think she's leaving a message on the answering machine at the end. Another example of her missing her, and they want to connect, they want to be there for each other, and they're just the timing is off for some reason.
Is anybody else not like totally into the brother and girlfriend characters? I was just.
Is it brother and girlfriend or brother and sister?
No, it's
brother and girlfriend.
It's brother and his girlfriend.
Yeah, girlfriend.
I was just. They were so not fleshed out that I was just kind of like, who are these people? Kind of like I was just kind of like I feel like if the nuclear family was just 3 people, we could spend all this time with like the mother and the father and her, but then we had like these other characters where I was like, who are they? Kind of. And
you explained the brother character to me very well when we got out of the movie. Like one plot point that I totally missed on.
What, that the brother is adopted?
Yeah. I kind of assumed that throughout because he's like
definitely
vaguely brown, but
he's
then
Miguel and he's.
Oh, it says it in the letter at the end that she was kind of a miracle child. That she didn't know she could get pregnant and then got pregnant with Lady Bird.
Which I did not get. Did you?
Well, there's a line. I think they explain it even earlier in the film because the dad has a line about how he was in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I think
and there's like
I think he's in either an affair or it was a kid from before. I don't know the timeline of because he doesn't say when, but he was in Brazil at one point. So I think it was a whole thing where that was either an illegitimate child or an affair child or.
I definitely thought it was adoption.
Adopted.
Yeah, because you would there's those letters at the end that she gets in New York that the dad sends her that the mother had written and thrown out. You get those scenes of the mothers writing them, throwing them out. And I was just like, oh, the sentiment of that is nice. But then when we came out, Kristine was like, oh yeah, and the lines in the letter were good. And I was like, oh, I couldn't read them that fast. And
they were quick. They zoomed in on only a few things you were able to make out. And I think one of them was something about
her being a miracle. You said, right? Like the idea that they couldn't get pregnant because then.
But how the brother
did.
came about.
Does that make sense?
So maybe it was adoption. I had took it as just that it was a child from another woman.
That's interesting. I wonder that recolors the whole dad too. I guess that's interesting
because I had thought it was a whole like a kind of like a mistake that he had made, and I thought it was supposed to color the mom's character for being forgiving of him for that and being like, yeah, I'll raise this kid.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
But now I'm not sure.
The girlfriend of the brother does that though in the one scene outside when she's smoking a cigarette and saying your mom didn't have to let me live here or whatever, right?
She has one line of exposition where she's like, my parents kicked me out because of sex stuff, and your mom is a nice enough person to let me into your house, so I think you should give her a break or whatever.
Yeah, which would reinforce the same thing you were just saying about the mom being caring and
they just again like, I don't think they were fleshed out at all. I was a little confused about them. I don't know. I didn't really think they were super necessary.
It seemed like it was starting to open up questions that the film wasn't fully ready to answer.
Right.
Like they had like it's hard to say because I feel like inherent in like a discussion about class is obviously a discussion about race, but I also feel like the film didn't dive into race as much as it could have, besides just expressing that Sacramento is pretty culturally diverse, like even in the Catholic school.
They have like one line, I think, about his race, and
the
Lady Bird
argument she has
implies
with Lady
that,
Bird.
Yeah, he got into Berkeley because because of his race, and he said, I
didn't put it down.
I didn't put it in. But again, by that time, I was just like, it's too little, too late. I don't really know or care about this. It's just kind of like when the dad's going for the job interview, and then his son walks in for the job interview, and everyone's surprised by that. I was just kind of like, I don't know. Like this is not as heartbreaking or devastating as I think you think it is. You know, like I was just kind of like,
I kind of like that detail because I think it was exemplary of like, you know, this is the new economy that we're living in where you know, parents can't provide a better life for their kids than, you know, they had, which is what the American dream had always been. Like, oh well, my kids are going to have a better life, and now they're not sure, or, you know, completely doubt that they could even do it. And not only that, now their kids are like interviewing for the same jobs that they're interviewing for too, and they're losing out on, you know, being able to provide at all. You know? They're just kind of getting pushed out of the provider position completely.
Yeah.
I agree that the brother and the girlfriend weren't really complex characters and didn't add a crazy amount, but I thought they were necessary because the mom is obviously can't express emotions in the way that you think of moms and you say, you know, like motherly love and things like that. But to have a child that's adopted and then bring in a child that's not your child just to live with you, your son's girlfriend, is a different type of emotional capacity that takes a different kind of person. So I think it helps a lot of people see the mom in a different light, that because you're not seeing her, she's not saying I love you every day to Lady Bird. She's not caring in that way with words.
Right. And that's also like a very interesting scene that I like. That's they're at the thrift store again, and it's after that kind of dress scene, which didn't really have a total effect on me just because I've seen it so many times in the trailer. But the one scene that did have an effect on me is Lady Bird comes out with like this very pink dress, and even her hair color, like her name, her hair color, she's kind of just rejecting everything that her mother has given her, you know? And she comes out with this pink dress, and the mom's just kind of like hesitant about it, and Lady Bird's like, I need you to tell me that like I'm pretty. She's like, I don't even think you like me. And the mom's like, I love you. And like she can't say that I like you and I love you, kind of. Because, and even like it kind of finishes the sentence later, but it's kind of like what's it called? She doesn't want to say I like you because she thinks she's better than she currently is. And then Lady Bird, without that being said, Lady Bird comes out and says like, but what if this is the best version of me, kind of. And I think that was like all like, it was a bunch of like really great dialogue that didn't say a lot, but it did. And, like there was a lot of subtext to it. And like characters are responding to each other's subtext.
I also feel like the blend of comedy and drama in this movie is so perfect because there's like actual punchlines that will accomplish both at the same time. Like that scene that you're talking about where she's saying like, well, what if this is the best version of me that I'm going to be? And then Laurie Metcalf just kind of gives a look like, like really like you could do better. But that's also like kind of sad and like dramatic at the same time, like and very telling of their relationship in that. Or the one scene I also think of is the father, Stephen Henderson's character, Father Leviatch, I think his name was, when he does like the exercise with the theater kids, and he's like, whoever can cry first can win, and then he just keeps crying. Like I laughed really hard at that, but it's also like a very sad scene at the same time with the theater professor crying during the exercise.
I'm like, why did he apologize about that? I kind of I know
because it became real crying.
I don't know. I thought that was going to be a punchline, and then that like that definitely ran into a different plot line
Right.
Yeah,
which
I thought that
I
was-
wasn't crazy about, but like I was like, whatever, yeah.
I thought that was cool. I like having like the rug pulled out from under me though, because it's a setup of a joke, and then the end is tragedy. Like it's
It was the
like,
same thing with the Kyle character too, because like I laughed really hard at sort of the reveal of like, oh well, my dad has cancer, so he's gonna die soon.
Yeah, it's like the
That was-
inverse of that.
But then we have the
Yeah.
scene when she leaves Kyle's bedroom and she sees
He's
the dad
sleeping.
just kind of
Yeah.
like passed out and sleeping.
He's like literally still holding onto the paper. Like that's
Yeah.
a very strong scene. I hate to be the fucking Debbie Downer and keep up bringing scenes up that I didn't like. But I mean, even movies that I do really like, I like to bring up kind of their flaws and be like, how do we make this perfect movie kind of? But a scene that I fucking hated in this movie is when the theater teacher leaves for the second semester and they bring in like the assistant varsity football coach, and the movie takes this fucking sharp turn of like the tone of comedy in this movie, and he's all of a sudden like, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna sing and it's gonna be great, and he's drawing like plays on the board, and then even like all of like the theater kids are like writing, like you can like literally zero in on Lucas Hedges, and he's like like it looks like it's this bizarre reality where they kind of look like they're doing like some of the acting exercises that they were doing like in the first act, kind of like it's all like that whole scene. It's only like, I think it's 30 seconds, and then they cut back to it once or twice, and then they even like revisit it when she goes and sees like The Tempest when they put it on like as a high school production. But that whole like,
the football coach gets like a joke or two in that scene too, and the play's going on. He like
he's like
gets up and cheers.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I was just like, no, this is a different movie that you're like, right. This like seems like not another teen movie.
it was like a different. It was a
comedy.
different brand of humor. It was
It's weird
different.
because those things are funny, but you're right. They just like they aren't
They
funny
don't,
in
they
the way
don't
that
totally
the rest of
fit in the
yeah.
film that was out there.
It was just kind of like, I heard people laughing in my theater at it, and I think that's just like a response. But me, as I'm very invested in the tone of this film. Like I'm not in the mood to laugh at something like this. It's just is bizarre.
There were some times that I think some of the characters almost delved into like caricature.
Yeah.
And I think that coach is one of them. Sometimes Kyle's character would do that as well, or Jenna especially too.
Yeah,
And
Jenna seems like I saw her in Neighbors 2 Sorority Rising, and she plays the same exact character as this one. So it was hard for me to take that character seriously at times when she was delivering more comedic. I think she did fantastic with emotional. I love that actor or actress. Like I hope I see her in more stuff. That's Jonah Hill's little sister.
Oh really?
Jenna's?
Really?
Yeah.
The Jenna character?
Oh.
Or Julie?
Julie.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Julie was great in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was times that like I almost got like a Napoleon Dynamite vibe from this movie. Just like it's not the Midwest, but it's like Sacramento. So like I guess middle,
The Midwest of
middle,
California.
middle. Yes, yeah, that is a lot. Yeah, just like where it would be like that mixed with like almost like a Wes Anderson kind of like dry humor sometimes, and the way they would deliver the lines was almost a little too much like a character delivering a punchline rather than like a real person saying like a real thing. And it would stick out because there are times where the acting is very real and very grounded in this film. Right. So when they have these like punchlines, sometimes it would kind of pull me out of the film a bit, and I would think of like Napoleon Dynamite, which I don't think is what they want me to think of during a movie like this.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, this
let's just
Can we
sit,
just sit in
with
this
this movie.
Meanwhile, the movie would like cut to us like having drinks at a bar. We're like, yeah. But I don't know. I'm not setting this up for me to give it like a bad score or anything. But this film has 100 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I mean it's definitely going to be very prominent at the Oscars, and it fell just like a smidge short for me. I was just kind of like, I don't completely understand the hype of this. Where I went into it, I think opposite of you, where I think you thought like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. I walked into this like, I'm like, this is right up my alley. Like, I love indie movies. I love Greta Gerwig. I watched, like, I independently sought after The Edge of 17, like, that movie, like, last year. And that was fantastic. I really loved that. And there was something that I came out of this movie where I was just kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes it was like an indie movie. Sometimes it really played into, like, high school movie. Like I saw pieces of, like, The Perks of Being, like, a Wallflower, like, movie, like, in this. And I saw, like, it didn't completely commit to this is an indie movie kind of thing. Like, as much as I wanted it to be. It was definitely a blend of, like, high school comedy, high school young adult novel, high school, there's a coming
Musical.
of age kind of. Yeah. Why is Zac Efron singing in this movie? That's so strange.
Why do they have basketballs and they're dancing with them?
I mean, at 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, is there anything negative that you guys took away from this, or?
I was actually trying to think of that in the car. I was like, I don't want to go in there and just talk about all the good things. I do want to break it apart.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's harder for me to pick out the negatives in this movie because of how much I did relate to it. I immediately called my mom after the movie, told her to go see it. So my mom went to see it, and then we had a discussion about our relationship after it. I feel like I'm emotionally invested in this.
Both their names are Kristine, and her
name is
real
Kristine.
Kristine's
Not
mother is
Kristen.
actually a nurse too.
Yeah, my mom's a nurse, and it was just so. My dad's like soft spoken, how that dad is, would literally actually sit and play solitaire on the computer while we're at each other's throats and just ignore everything that's happening behind him. And so I just feel a little emotionally connected to the movie, and I feel like it was so necessary to make something like that and have something out there for people to relate to in that way where I don't think there is much else.
Right, yeah.
And so it was hard for me to really nitpick at it because I was like, oh, thank you for making this. Like,
Oh, no,
thank
definitely,
you. I
yeah.
had an open conversation with my mother.
I think that's kind of why, like, the high Rotten Tomatoes score, because I think it's striking a chord that a lot of movies, or
Yeah.
I mean, no movies have really done before.
Right.
Like, I saw it with my girlfriend Rowan, and her big takeaway was kind of like, you know, I've heard you talk so many times about movies that you've seen where you're like, that's what growing up was like for me, you know,
Right.
like Boyhood, or like some of the scenes in like Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Or I just saw Super Dark Times this year, and there's a lot of like really relatable stuff about growing up
Any
in the
movie
90s.
with a boy who's under
Yeah, and
18.
we've explored it so many
can
times
relate
in
to,
film,
yeah.
and she's like, "This is the first time I've seen something where I'm like, that's what it was like to be
There's
a girl
not
in
a
high
lot
school."
for teenage girls
Yeah.
to relate to. Like,
So
relate to when
I
they
think
were
that's
teenagers.
why a lot of women are relating to it, and then even for someone like me, like I think it makes me understand what that might have been like. So I think it kind of works across the spectrum.
I went in like you two thinking I wasn't gonna like it. I'm not a huge fan of Greta Gerwig before this. Like, I really don't like Frances Ha very much. And I was kind of like, this looks interesting, but like I don't like her a lot. And then I came out and I was like, oh wow, she's really good. I'm glad I saw that. And
This is a really great directorial debut.
Yeah, goddamn.
Yeah.
I also think that that's the weakest thing of it. Like, I think the writing is incredible. I think the acting's really good.
Yeah, I can agree.
Like the Laurie Metcalf scene where she's circling and the long shot on her following her, and her face is kind of like static, and then the motion in the back, that's like awesome. And the opening shot of them in the bed, I kind of like that aerial one, but the other ones all just feel like very like standard. Like, there's no interesting camera work. Or not that every movie has to be like.
I think it was more like a thematic vision and, you know, a feeling that they wanted to get across rather than like this specific shot or this. And she did talk about that in the podcast where she's like, I don't really know like the technical side of things. I just kind of know what I want the movie to be. So she had her cinematographer kind of pick, you know, pretty much everything visually and leaned on him or her. I can't remember who shot the movie for most of that stuff.
Can I tell you a scene where I feel like, I cry during most movies, and this movie was no exception. The last half of it was nonstop feeling something, like feeling my face making, you know. But times where I didn't get that response because maybe the acting, maybe the directing. The first one is I don't think Lucas Hedges really brings it.
Oh, I actually really liked him in this.
When he breaks down and cries and she comforts him behind the coffee shop, I thought the crying was like, again, I thought the crying was kind of like a little like high school acting-ish. Like it felt like he was so good at being like the drama kid. Like he was great. He really nails it. But I think when it came to like serious drama and him like, I mean, even if that's kind of just written awkwardly, where it's kind of like he cries and breaks down into her arms, kind of, and he really has to go for it. And I think it didn't get me. It didn't get me, that scene. And then also after Lucas kind of spills the beans about like her being waitlisted, and the mom's washing dishes and she's giving her the silent treatment, I didn't connect on that scene. There was something about what's her name's
Saoirse?
Yeah, Saoirse's acting, or just the lack of response by the mom, that I was like, this doesn't feel realistic, kind of, and this also feels like weird acting. Like it feels like they didn't get enough takes of that, and it wasn't able to elicit some sort of emotion from me. I was just kind of like, this is one of the more weaker points of this.
It did feel like it was off by like maybe a notch or two, but I
like,
still thought that was a pretty strong scene.
Talk to me. It was just kind of like, I was like, I've had the silent treatment before, and this is not, like, from my mom especially, and this is not kind of what it feels like. I mean, it might be, you know, specific to Greta Gerwig's vision or whatever, but it didn't connect with me. By the way, Saoirse looks like Greta Gerwig at a young age.
Yeah.
A lot
I
during this
thought
film.
that the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I did really like that Lucas Hedges scene, though, of him kind of being forced to come out in that instance and then being scared about it and crying.
Right.
And I really like his like drama kid performance, and I think it makes me appreciate his performance in Manchester by the Sea even more.
Yeah, I was thinking
Because
that.
sometimes when you haven't seen an actor in a lot of stuff, you're kind of like, well, maybe that's just the way he is. And then you see him in this, and you're like, oh, he's completely different in both of these roles. So it kind of speaks to how powerful each of those performances are.
Even 3 Billboards, I think he really shows up for a not great, like not wonderfully written film, especially one that kind of abandons a lot of characters and introduces.
Yeah.
So it's really his year. It's really, we haven't seen Timothy's Chalamet. We haven't seen Call Me By.
Timothy was in Interstellar. And then he was also in Homeland. He was one of the kids, I think, of the protagonist in Homeland. So I've seen him in a bunch of stuff before.
But he's supposed to be nominated for
Call Me By Your Name. Yeah.
I want to see that. I was just, the New Yorker did 2 reviews of that. Like
I saw that,
2 film critics, like A.O. Scott and Brody or whatever that was.
It's like, are these competing reviews?
They were. One was positive and one was negative.
yeah.
I was like, what?
Like at the same time they put him out? Or that's kinda
I
funny.
saw one, like, I think in the magazine and then the other one online. I was like, wait, this is different than
So
the one I read. I was
confused.
like,
There's gotta be a mistake.
Yeah, I think one, it wasn't exactly at the same time. I think one was like an early screening at like a film fest or something, and one was now. I don't know. I might be wrong. But no, yeah, I read both of those, and I was kind of like, make up your mind, New Yorker. It is weird, though. I remember, I don't know. It's going to be a strange film to review, too, I feel like, because everything happening in Hollywood, and it is a sexual relationship between an underage man and a...
Yeah, they're like 17 and 24 or something
Yeah.
like that. 17 and 23.
So it's, we'll see.
And it's a Winklevoss twin, plays the older one, right?
Yes.
What was the tweet that he sent to James Woods that everyone was retweeting for a while?
Right, James Wood was like, I don't think this was like a very appropriate content for this film. I was like, well, James Woods, like, you're fucking like...
He was like, didn't you date like a 17-year-old or something?
Yeah. And Sufjan...
That's right.
Wrote original music for the...
Sufjan Stevens for an Oscar,
Oh,
2017.
wait, he wrote original music for...
Call Me By Your Name.
Oh, I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we haven't had a new album from him in so long. That's why we're getting an album of remixes and B-sides and leftovers.
Also, is Sufjan gay?
What does that have to do with it?
I don't know. I've just always wondered that. He's very sexually ambitious. Or just
Ambitious.
I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna get some sex.
All I do is fuck. Hi, I'm Sufjan.
Anyway, this is Chicago. It's a song about me crying. All of my songs. All right, let's get some finger ratings on Lady Bird.
Yeah. Whatever. Sufjan. Fuck
Oh, you're
you.
still in the Sufjan character.
Here's predatory wasp. I'm like, fuck this guy. He kissed me on the cheek. Go on.
On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 100% based on 174 reviews. I think that might actually be like 185 now. I haven't checked since I posted this.
Is it still at a pure 100?
Yes. With an average rating of 8.9 out of 10, the site's critical consensus reads, Lady Bird delivers fresh insights about the turmoil of adolescence and reveals debuting writer-director Greta Gerwig as a fully formed filmmaking talent. And on November 27, 2017, the film became the most reviewed film ever to remain at 100% on the site with 164 positive reviews, beating previous record holder Toy Story 2, which has 163 positive reviews.
Toy Story 2 is really great. Yeah. Right, so.
Some comedian has a bit that's like Toy Story 2 is okay. Mm-hmm. It's like he sees it carved in a bathroom stall, and he's like, "Why were you so aggressively carving Toy Story 2 is okay?"
Start writing on bathroom
I think I
walls.
kind of remember that. I remember who that was. I can go first. If you
I
guys
think
are
that was even like, I'm sorry, to like
no, go on.
it was like a huge deal that like small time Rotten Tomatoes critics were giving Toy Story 3 negative reviews so that their website could get like tons of like attention. Because like, who would say this movie's bad? Kind of. It was at like 98% like.
That happened with another movie.
Get Out was at 100.
Was it
for
Get
a
Out?
minute,
Yeah,
I think.
and there was
Yeah.
the one guy that was like, "Oh, this is a bad movie."
I don't like this.
Not for
A little
me.
too urban for me.
So I'm gonna give this 4.5 out of 5. I think it touched me way more than I was really expecting it to. Like I thought it was gonna. What are you gonna laugh about?
Nothing. Just
It touched me, Joe.
more than you were expecting it to.
I thought it would touch me a little bit. I didn't think it would. I was just very emotionally affected by it.
What is this, Matt Lauer? Tune in for.
Too soon. Yeah, we joke about that next week.
Yeah, that's a reoccurring joke. Matt Lauer, you piece of shit human being.
This movie jerked off on me. So it's more of a Louis C.K. thing for me.
This movie locked the doors behind me.
Promised me I could open up for it for a month's worth.
Pieces of shit in Hollywood. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like it really put me in the shoes of these characters. Pretty much like everyone in this movie, I felt like it at some point made you feel for them, or feel what it was like to be them. You know, especially Lady Bird, especially her mom, definitely the dad. Even, you know, Lucas Hedges' character, Timothy Chalamet's character. I just felt like it was so well written in that aspect. I really liked the editing. I think editing and writing wise, these are my favorite. My favorite. Kind of drunk right now. Sorry. Best written movie of 2017. Best edited movie of 2017 that I've seen so far. And I think like really the only thing that I would change is to make some of the portrayals a little less caricature, like Kyle and Jenna, and like the football coach at that point. But other than that, like I think everything was really on the head. I love just being able to pick apart this movie, the writing wise, and just, you know, this relates to this, and this is an under theme for this, and this is calling back to this, and just very beautifully done in all those aspects. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.5 out of 5. I liked it a lot.
Very cool. Would one of you guys like to? Have you guys settled on how many fingers? Name of the podcast.
Oh, is that where that comes from?
Oh, yeah.
I don't watch you guys ever at all.
Except the Anomalisa.
I just fucking know about that Anomalisa episode, and you guys are gonna pay for that.
Okay. I'm gonna give it all 5 of my fingers.
Ooh.
All to Lady Bird. I was leaning toward doing a 4.5 thing, and what is putting me in the 5 range, I think, is the necessity of the movie for people out there. There, as I kept saying throughout most of this, is that there isn't anything for, people that, or girls to relate to their teenage years in this way, especially girls that have a relationship like this with their mom. And I think putting something out there in the world like this kind of opens up a lot of doors. Mm-hmm. So besides the fact that I loved the writing of it, and I thought the acting was incredible, and it was really well casted, and the music, like Justin Timberlake's song and things like that, I think just the necessity of the movie and how it can, in the long run, change a lot of things in the way things are made and open up a lot of doors. I just think this movie was incredible. I recommend it, but I also could totally see someone, I would completely understand if someone came to me and said, I hated that movie. Nothing monumental happens. It's not, it's basic.
Well, no one does. It's 100%.
100%.
No one does.
That's
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to go out there and be like, like a diehard, like, how could you not like this movie? Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But I personally, 5 fingers, definitely.
I love the Dave Matthews
Yeah.
inclusion. That was really.
Yeah, because the movie so easily could have been soundtracked with a bunch of Belle and Sebastian songs,
Yeah,
and it's she had very high schooly songs.
Very real.
You can read the letters that she wrote to, I think, Justin Timberlake, Dave Matthews, and then I keep saying
Alanis
Morissette.
Yeah.
What is she
they're pretty
use of
funny.
Justin Timberlake's?
The Crimea River.
Crimea River, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
At the dance
party. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I really like when they're in the car and Crashing comes on again, and Timothy Chalamet's like, oh, this guy fucking sucks. And she's like, I like Dave Matthews.
Because I really like Dave Matthews in high school, and now I'm like,
It's interesting to think of the necessity of it too, since Moonlight won last year, and that's another movie that was necessary in a way to tell a story that hadn't been told before. So yeah, that's that'll be interesting when Oscar season starts up, and if it's this versus P.T. Anderson's as the 2 front runners, which would seemingly, I know we don't know a lot about that P.T. movie coming out, but it seemingly would be a very white, upper class movie, right? It's about a fashion designer,
right? Yeah,
which is fine, but it'd be interesting to think about a necessary movie versus more of a period.
Well, there's
piece,
that, the front
thing.
runners are really going to be Dunkirk, and then The Post, the Steven Spielberg one coming out about the Washington Post, which is Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, and it's just very
Spotlight
much an Oscar bait. Yeah, it's an Oscar baity kind of movie. They're clearly trying to win an Oscar with that type of material in those actors. So that the contrast I think would be between those two,
That's
the Post
interesting.
and kind of the old guard of what did we used to nominate for Best Picture and what used to win Best Picture.
Because I do think we'll see Get Out as a Best Picture
a nominee
nominee
at least, for sure.
Too.
In the comedy category.
Yeah, Golden Globes comedy, best comedy, Get Out. Yeah, discrimination is funny.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
Probably not first.
You didn't hear it. You hold it for
But here.
Boy. Okay. I'll go next. I think I've laid everything out on the table that I wanted to say about this film. Again, and I do also have a sort of complicated relationship with Greta Gerwig. I was, as somebody who was super interested in film in college. When we went to college, she was one of the founding fathers of the mumblecore genre, and there was a lot happening in indie film, and almost everything was involving Greta Gerwig. And even in my earlier kind of college slut-shamey opinion, I was like, why does Greta Gerwig have to be naked in every single mumblecore film? And it really wasn't until Frances Ha that I was like, I hate Greta Gerwig, and I watched that movie and I still hated her. I didn't like that movie, and then all of a sudden, to this day, it's the movie that's grown the most on me. I sat down with it for sat with it for like a week, and I was like, holy shit, that's like a 5-finger movie. Like, I really thoroughly enjoyed that. There's so much of that movie. There's so much of that movie that even touches into this, where it's just kind of like she's in her 20s in that movie, and she's like, I'm so sorry, I'm not like a full-grown like human being yet. Like, I don't know who I am yet, kind of. And that could definitely like apply to this movie. Like, I see so much of Greta Gerwig in this movie and in like the Lady Bird character. And I really loved her after that, and I love Noah Baumbach. And in retrospect, I had to be like, I love Greta Gerwig in all these different mumblecore films, like the Duplass brothers and whatever his name is, the guy who did like what is that series on? Oh, Joe Swansburg or whatever. Have you ever seen any of his movies? Because she was in a lot of those. But yeah, there was definitely, I don't know, again, I went into this movie thinking like, fuck yeah. I love like girl stories, man. Like, I watched Gossip Girl. Like The Edge of 17, I went out of my way and I bought that online because I was like, it's a girl in high school. Give it to me. She's got angst, you know? And I love indie movies. Like, all of my favorite movies are always like, oh, my top movie this year is like some movie like you never heard of. And it's literally just people like talking about their feelings. And like, that's where like all of that kind of like, the short film that we made, like Less Than 3, it's just people talking about their feelings for 20 minutes, you know, kind of. And I don't know, I went into this movie and it was just like such a weird blend of kind of like, I don't want to see like a weird blend of like high school movie in this, kind of. I loved like a lot of like the drama kids, like the whole like drama gang that they form in here, but I also don't like some of the again, there's a lot of like weird tonal kind of comedy in this. I really don't like the editing at all. There's a lot of stuff that I think should have been to breathe. I think the audience could appreciate it more. Maybe I'm in a minority because 100% people like disagree with me, kind of. But yeah, I'm gonna stop yammering. I think I'm gonna give this 3.5. That's like what I gave the Big Sick, and I kind of had the same feeling coming out of this, where I was like, I expected to like this more, but I still really liked it. It's like a whole finger more than like middle of the road. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, and that's where I'm gonna land.
Nice. Very cool. My turn.
It is your turn.
All right, so I don't fucks with.
Yes! We've done over 100 episodes, and that's maybe one of my favorite intros to somebody's finger score. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything. No, you guys, specifically Kristine and Mike, said a lot of things that I agree with. And it's interesting you brought up the Big Sick though, because I went into that with high expectations. I like love Kumail and Showalter, and like I was really excited for that.
Right.
And it was fine. I like didn't dislike it, but I was like a little. I probably would give that like 3.5. And I think
that's what I gave it.
I went in the opposite this way, like kind of whatever about Greta Gerwig, and just really, really thought this was great. I'm gonna give it 4.5 too, not 5, because of I excited to see what she does next. Like it seems like she could be more ambitious, like in terms of like cinematography and just like visually speaking. Like the writing is so strong that I'd like to see her try some more creative things visually. But yeah, I thought this was great.
I do. I really look forward to her career as a director.
I'm nervous. What if this was her and like I'm gonna go see her next movie and it's gonna be the most disappointing, because I'm gonna go in now with
very high expectations,
that feeling that high off of Lady Bird, and then what if the next one is just
you can't go higher than 100%. So.
Exactly. Where is she?
It's only gonna be a letdown from here.
Where will she go? So I'm nervous but excited.
Where do we go from here?
I'm feeling it.
Yo, shout out Blink-182. I love your band. Come hang out with me.
Shout out Tom DeLonge. I want to search for UFOs with you.
Just do the podcast, Tom.
Come talk about UFOs.
I was going to bring that up. He like loves aliens now.
He was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
That was
talking
really
about-
interesting
yeah,
to listen to, and creepy at the same time.
If you guys want to hear what Tom DeLonge's up to, go check out the Joe
Or
Rogan
what he
podcast.
thinks he's up to.
Building a rocket ship.
So all that's going to come to 4.375. So we'll round that down to 4 fingers. So 4 fingers for Lady Bird, not 100%.
Do you guys aggregate
And
these?
now she hates me for Anomalisa. Now she's gonna hate you for Lady Bird.
Cool hate.
Do you guys keep a running track? Like, what's the highest one of the year so far?
I think Dunkirk might be.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, we gotta check that
Oh,
out
it's
next.
good. And again, it'll be very prominent at the Oscars. We think.
I think
We
that's
try to
the
get in
front
all
runner
the
right
Oscar
now.
movies
right?
before the Oscars.
that's the front runner for Best Picture right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we give 4.5.
I think it's just a safe bet, honestly, right now, just because
Like
it's
Nolan
like
in a war movie. and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
mhm. I think it'll shift eventually.
Yeah.
And we also Good Time. We gave 4.5. So I think there's the only 2 that would be higher than
Oh,
this
we've
one.
been that's been like on our list. That's Robert Pattinson and
Right.
yeah. No, we'll
wanna
see
check-
that
I
before
really
the
wanna check
award
that
season.
one out, yeah.
Were you guys at Halloween?
No, we missed Halloween.
Oh, okay. I was dressed up as Robert.
Oh yeah, I saw a
Pattinson's
I
picture.
saw
character.
the
Yeah,
pictures
yeah,
of
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and then I was like, wow, we gotta see this movie.
And everyone at that party was like,
Did the-
"Who are you?" I was like, "Okay, let me set the scene." It's like every time I approach somebody, Good Time, a movie that nobody's seen, but it's perfect.
that
was my-
writer director did something last year too, right? It's a pair, right?
Yeah,
Heaven,
it's
Brothers.
the Safdie brothers.
Yeah, Heaven
yeah.
Waits or something like that.
Yeah.
Heaven Only Knows.
Heaven
Yeah,
only knows.
and that got like amazing reviews too. I want to kind of crank both those out.
Yeah, they've done a bunch of like really great films. Yeah, I'm glad that they're breaking through right now. There's a bunch of like really great stuff. And like I think like there's like 30 or 40 like pizza shops right now that are like all just giving out pizza boxes that just have like the Good Time logo on it right now. Like it's just I'm glad like Brooklyn and New York are like getting behind that movie. It's
That's
just
we just
fucking
saw
great.
Person to Person like a
Oh
month or
my-
two ago.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite
That
movies
one's
of this
I
year.
loved it.
Yeah,
It's
that
so
was
The
good.
Michael
really,
Cera
really
one?
good.
Or?
Yeah.
I just bring it up because I love. We came out and I was like, I just love New York movies. Like I just want to
Yeah.
move to New York, and like that's what the Good Time and like having.
Or just like that guy, like he's just trying to fucking collect like vintage records,
Yeah.
and he like chases down that guy on like a bike and like wants
yeah.
to beat the shit out of him, but like he's obviously not mentally well, and he's like, I don't know what to fucking do with you, man. Like it's just so that's the guy who's not mentally like all there. He's also in Good Time, and he also
nice.
again
Okay.
plays a not mentally well.
Oh, one of the
person.
Safdie brothers is Benny, isn't
It's Benny. Is yeah.
who liked our picture on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah. The Safdie brothers.
We're best friends now, basically.
We contacted them on Twitter, and they're our friends now. They liked and replied to one of our tweets. Yeah.
Anyway, so if you listen to this review and you agree or disagree, which I doubt anyone disagrees because it's got 100%, but if you do, please leave a comment below on SoundCloud, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're listening or watching. We'd love to hear from you and continue the conversation, as we always say. And got any last plugs before we get out of here? Where was your stuff published that people can find it?
What was your most recent poem?
Kettle Blue Review is the most recent one. And then I have
Okay.
stuff at like Crack the Spine and Right Hand Pointing, and yeah, if you just Google my super Polish last name in poetry, some things will pop up.
You got to have your swastika key ready.
Oh, right, yeah. Copy and paste the last name. And yeah, also check out Kristen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for having us. Seriously, this was a lot of fun.
Dude,
I'm not saying thank you.
both you dudes, thanks so much for coming on.
Dudette is my preferred pronoun.
Okay. Dudettes, thanks so much for coming on. No, yeah, we talked at Joe's get together, and I was like, I gotta have you fucking guys on. Yeah.
Very cool. So for us, you can find pretty much everything at howmanyfingerspodcast.com. I don't really feel like reading all of it right now.
We got social media links, man.
You can find it all there. Daddy's hungover.
It's been behind us the entire time.
Very nice. So yeah,
What
thanks
a
for coming.
twist.
What
Go
a
on.
twist.
I'm sorry.
I don't have anything important to say. Was just trying to get us out of this episode.
I'd love for you guys to come back on again.
Yes, please.
I really
Absolutely.
enjoyed this
Yeah.
experience. And my name's Joe.
I'm Mike.
I'm Daniel.
Kristen.
That was Kristen, and we'll see you for next episode.